I know the Orlando Magic are on a 3-game losing streak and can't throw a grape in the ocean. But today's episode is about perspective because the Eastern Conference ain't running away from the Magic today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is November 5th. It will be November 6th, 2024. My name is Philip Rosenreich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, since everybody is all gloom and doom, I'm here to give some perspective. Why the Magic shouldn't be that worried about their recent downturn, what the Magic can do to stay in the Eastern Conference race, the big questions that are being asked, and why you shouldn't stop panicking because the process is actually working perfectly. We'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. And you can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be optimistic. I am not in panic mode about anything we've seen, about a lot of things we've seen from the Orlando Magic over the last week, over the last 3 games. The Magic are in a bad spot right now. 4-game losing streak, and really not looking good. In fact, the Magic now have the 29th ranked offensive rating in the league, only ahead of the Utah Jazz. They've scored fewer than 90 points per 100 possessions in the last 2 games against Dallas and against Oklahoma City. The shooting is really bad. We'll talk more about that toward the end of the episode. There are a lot of things to be upset about. And yes, I will fully admit this. The Magic have played 3 straight fourth quarters that have looked really good, that have padded their stats, but have ultimately been meaningless because the Magic have been non-competitive. It is a major concern, and I'm not downplaying that concern, that the Magic have not been competitive in any of the 3 games since Paolo Banchero's injury. It is a major, and honestly, like I just mentioned yesterday, there are a lot of concerns that go beyond Paolo Banchero's injury. A lot of concerns about how the Magic are playing that they have to keep building on it and find a correction. But let's state this plainly. We always knew when Paolo got hurt, it was going to take some time for players to fill into new roles. It was going to take some time for this team to figure itself out again. It has to form a new identity. And we can argue about whether the Magic should be so centered on their star player and his specific skills. And I think that is perfectly fair to say. But the Magic do have to shift the way they're attacking because of having new players. And frankly, they have not had time to do so. They traveled the day after Chicago to get to Cleveland. They've had 1 shoot around in Cleveland. They didn't practice in Dallas on Saturday. They took a travel day that day too. They did not do a shoot around before the game in Dallas because it was an early tip. They don't do a shoot around on the second night of back-to-backs. They always take the day off after a back-to-back, so they didn't practice today. They have a shoot around Wednesday morning in Indianapolis. Then they come home. I believe they are off on Thursday, or they're scheduled to practice Thursday, but they're not going to practice Thursday. The Magic haven't had a lot of time to actually get on the court and figure this stuff out. And whether you like it or not, yes, the Magic were plainly optimistic about their progress and about them figuring this out. It's just 3 games. And I know the Magic entered this season saying every game's important. We learned so much that during that time we were all injured, we dropped some games that we shouldn't have dropped, and that cost us in the long run. That is all correct. The Magic should be better. The Magic should have been more prepared for this the Magic should have been more competitive than this. This is an indictment on Jamal Mosley. This is an indictment on this team. I'm going to get into some of those issues in a minute. But let's not lose sight of the bigger picture here. Let's not lose sight that there is still a lot ahead of Orlando. And yes, there is still a long time before Paolo comes back. We got at least 15, 16, maybe 20 games until Paolo comes back. And the point is now Orlando has to find a way to make the most of this time. And if they're making steps, if they're getting closer to doing that, then everything's going to be fine. The point is we're going to forget these 3 games very quickly. When the Magic get that first win, when the Magic are kind of stable, let's just not, I'm not saying they're going to like go on a crazy run, but when the Magic are stable, they're going to be fine. And these 3 losses will be an anomaly and just say they were still in the wake of the injury, whatever. The important thing here is there is still plenty of time for that main goal. And that main goal is making the playoffs. We can talk about home court advantage. We can talk about all that. But the main goal right now is to be in playoff position so that when Paolo gets back, they can make their run up the standings and solidify their place. And this is the good news. You ready? We're going to do early season standings watch. The fact that this happened early in the season, and Goga Batadze actually mentioned this after the game on Wednesday, the fact that this happened early in the season is a benefit because they have more time to make up for these mistakes. And guess what? The rest of the Eastern Conference, they aren't running away with anything. The Orlando Magic are 3-5. They're 2 games under 500. They're sitting in 8th in the Eastern Conference, tied with the Atlanta Hawks, which, maybe I think we expected maybe to fall back toward Atlanta, tied with the Detroit Pistons, who beat the Lakers last night. A lot of us, I think, don't expect those teams to keep the pace. The Magic are a half game back of Indiana and Chicago for 6th. They're a game back of Brooklyn, New York, and Miami for 3rd at 3-3. Brooklyn's 4-4. The point is, if you go down the list of every Eastern Conference team so far, everybody is struggling. Everybody is a mess. Outside of Cleveland at 8-0 and Boston at 7-1, who lost an overtime game to the Pacers, by the way. Every single team in the East is a mess. Miami's 3-3. We saw them at the beginning of the season. Very beatable. New York is 3-3. Still figuring out how their pieces fit together. Brooklyn is one of the surprises in the East. The Magic beat them already. They're 4-4. And honestly, kudos to Brooklyn. Credit to Jordi Fernandez. Dennis Schroeder is playing really, really well. I know a lot of Magic fans have him on their early trade wish list. I don't think the Magic are scared of them, especially when they get healthy. Chicago is sitting at 3-4. Magic saw the Bulls. Credit to the Bulls for winning. That was an ugly game. If Paolo's healthy, Orlando probably wins. Indiana's 3-4. We saw them already too. Indiana is just a roller coaster right now. They beat Dallas on Tuesday. They won't be easy to play when the Magic head up to Indianapolis, but we've seen them. They're beatable. Atlanta, Detroit, Washington, Charlotte, Toronto. That's your 9 through 13. All of those teams are flawed and expected not to be super competitive this year. And then you have Philadelphia at 1-5 and Milwaukee at 1-6. It is obviously way too early to take the standings with any credit. It is obviously way too early to be concerned about the standings, except for the Magic don't have much ground to make up. The Eastern Conference is right now, at least very, very early in the season, giving the Magic some grace. They're giving the Magic a chance to take a breath, recompose themselves. Because a 3-game winning streak for the Magic puts them at 6-5, and the Magic are about to start a 5-game homestand that starts with the New Orleans Pelicans on Friday. New Orleans is 3-5 as well, struggling with a ton of injuries. They'll play Washington on Sunday, 2-4. They'll play Charlotte in their first NBA Cup game, 2-5. They get Indiana again at home next Wednesday in a home back-to-back. Good conditions for them. They're 3-4. And then they close that homestand against Philadelphia, who might have Joel Embiid back, will have Paul George back, but they're 1-5 and struggling a ton right now too. the opportunity is there for the Magic to make another push if they can get themselves right and make this all a blip in the radar, because the Eastern Conference is not taking that lesson of making every game count. Except for Boston and Cleveland, who are clearly the class of the East, nobody is running away with this thing. And frankly, if you look at this outlook, it feels very real that the 7 or the 8 seed is going to be 41 wins. It's way too early to tell, but it's feeling like the numbers are going to be depressed this year. That because because Philadelphia and Milwaukee are struggling, because Orlando is struggling with injuries, it's not going to take 47 wins to make the playoffs again. It might take 45, 44, 43, maybe 42. And Goga Bitadze said it best at the end of the game, after the game on Wednesday, after the game on Monday. We know how good we are. We know we're a playoff team. We know we're a 500 team. There is no reason to panic. And that is frankly my message today, is the Eastern Conference isn't running away from the Magic. It stinks right now. This team is playing really poorly. They have to focus on themselves and make themselves better. They have to play better. It's not rocket science. But the Magic aren't out of anything yet. They've got some grace. They've got some room to make mistakes. And they're making some mistakes right now. So as the Magic get better, as the Magic straighten themselves out, which it looks like they're starting to do, then we'll see the Magic establish themselves where they need to be in the standings. And then when Paolo comes back, Christmas, New Year's Day, somewhere in that neighborhood, then the Magic can make their push and climb those standings again. The Magic schedule's very weird coming up. We've got a 5-game homestand coming up starting on Friday against New Orleans, and then they're home for a week, and then they go out on the road to the West Coast. They go on a West Coast road trip. Going to be a huge test. So, frankly, if we're going to push the standings aside for now, the next 3 weeks are going to determine a lot. And again, by then we'll get the reevaluation with Paolo Banchero, but the next 3 weeks are going to be everything. The Magic just have to hold the boat steady. They got to steady their ship. They got to find their way. And if they do that, they're going to be right where they need to be in the playoff hunt, because that's ultimately what matters right now. But we cannot ignore what we're seeing. The big questions in play for the Orlando Magic and what we've learned in these last 3 games coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Hims. Guys, sometimes those intimate moments happen spontaneously. And you always have to be ready so you can perform and deliver for your partner. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay ready and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable Hardmans and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's Hims, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. And now the stuff in highlighted italics. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required as well. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Check it out today at hims.com/lockedon. You can tell I'm an optimist. I am not worried. I'm not panicked about what we've seen from the Orlando Magic so far without Paolo Banchero. I'm just not. I think that, I think that they'll find it and they'll straighten the ship. And I think Tuesday was a step in the right direction more than Sunday was. I think, the margin for error is still very, very small, and there's a lot of things that have to go right that aren't going right now for the Orlando Magic. And so I want to stress this. I'm an optimist. I think the Magic will be fine. I think they'll be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish this season. They will make the playoffs. Home court advantage isn't out of the question still. I think it's a longer shot now, but the way the East is shaping up, that goal is still very much in play. And, teams can survive their injuries. But we can't ignore what has happened. We can't ignore how much the team is struggling. And we can't ignore that there are some fundamental issues that the Magic are facing that they have to resolve. Look, I get it. We live in a society where everything is of the moment. We can't take a step back and take a breath. And I get that. I'll say this, the trade market doesn't open until December 15th. So trades are not in the offing. This is the group the Magic have. But you're right. If you're worried, if you're looking at this and saying, what is going on? You're right. This Magic roster is showing its deficiencies and showing Jeff Weltman, showing the front office that it still has a lot of work to do to be a championship contender. Paolo Banchero shouldn't be this important. He should be important. Like, you're not winning a playoff series without Paolo Banchero. But with the young players that you have, with the talent that you have, you should be able to be competitive. And like I said, the last 3 games, the winning and losing, it's important. That's not the thing that bothers me. I don't they need to win. There's no excuse for not winning. I'm less worried that they lost these games. I'm more worried that they weren't competitive. That when asked to take on a bigger role, Franz Wagner has needed 2-3 games to figure out how to do this. That Jalen Suggs has needed to kind of settle in and find himself. And look, he did some really nice things in Monday's game. So there is progress to report. That the Magic suddenly can't throw a grape in the ocean. And we'll talk about the shooting in a minute. But the Magic suddenly just can't make a shot to save their lives. It just feels like everybody's pressing, and that shouldn't be the case. We knew entering the season that the Magic did not address several key weaknesses that they had to. The playmaking is the biggest one. And this isn't to say the Magic, I think, made a mistake going after Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, because you can't predict Paolo Banchero is going to miss a quarter of the season because of a random injury. He's missed 10 total games in 2 seasons, and 8 of them were because of a sprained ankle in his rookie season. This is a durable dude. At 6'10", 250, he can take a hit. Just took the wrong hit at the wrong time. So, the Magic shouldn't be this dependent. And they need someone who can, frankly, have the bravado to take over. Not ego. Ego is the wrong word to say here, but, how's it get on, give me the ball and I'll figure it out. Every team needs a couple of those guys. And look, maybe the Magic thought Cole Anthony could be that guy, and he's just not. Maybe they're trying to coax that out of Franz Wagner. At the end of the day, I think it is important to go through this struggle. I don't think the Magic necessarily made a mistake not addressing these issues. In fact, I think the Magic are obviously upset Paolo's hurt, but the Magic and Jeff Weltman looked at this opportunity and said, okay, Paolo's gone. We've taken Paolo out of the equation. We know what we have in him. Let's see if Franz can take that step. Let's see if Jalen can take that step. Let's coax this attitude, this confidence, this aggressiveness out of these 2 players. And the fact of the matter is, they may not have been ready for it. They may not have been prepared for this responsibility. They're getting there. And like I said, it's just 3 games. And you hope that these 3 games are a blip on the radar, and these 2 players start to figure it out. They start to find what they're comfortable doing and start to see how they can attack. And I think we're starting to see it. I really liked how Franz played on Monday. I really liked how Jalen Suggs played on Monday. Those Those two guys struggled against Dallas. And again, the Magic need them to perform at a very high level to win right now. They performed well again. They performed well enough to win against Oklahoma City, even if some of it came in the fourth quarter. There is a lot to like. Franz needs to reduce the turnovers a little bit, but that's the only complaint I have about Franz's game on Monday. The Magic needed to see what these guys can do. And even if the answer is they cannot do it, that's valuable information. That tells Jeff Weltman, this is what we need to compete. Maybe it is time to go grab Anthony Simons or Colin Sexton or any number of the guards that might be out there that can take control, that can take those reins the way that the Magic need. Maybe the Magic are seeing it like, okay, our defense is holding firm. Defense has been okay. And now we can take this next step. Now we can add maybe a guy that's not a plus defender and gives us a bit of an offensive boost. If that's the lesson that comes out of it, and again, maybe it was obvious beforehand and they should have done it before, but the Magic want to give their young players the chance to learn and make mistakes. They don't know how good Jalen Suggs can be. They don't know how good Franz Wagner can be. They don't know what the limits of their games are. And the Magic, I think, very intentionally left things open-ended for them to give them opportunities like this to succeed or fail. And if they fail, then okay, then they can't do it yet. Or they can look at it and say, okay, they can't do it. We need to get someone who can. All of this is informing the next move because everybody knows the Magic can't keep this group together forever. Fair criticism that they did it to begin with, but they had success last year. They wanted to, not necessarily that they wanted to roll it over, expected it to roll over completely, but they know they're young enough that they create an environment to allow their young players to keep growing. Now, there are a lot of questions. Wendell Carter's playing hurt, and his weaknesses are, amplified because of the injury. Goga Bitadze coming in, being a rim protector, looked a little better. And I think the Magic are going to have to think about that, even though they gave Wendell Carter that new contract. There are a lot of big questions that are highlighted now that you've taken Paolo out of the equation. And even if some of those questions were obvious, the Magic are giving their young players the chance to answer them. That was the opportunity and the point of this time period. And yes, we are entering a period where it's put up or shut up, where if you can't answer these questions, then you're not on the team, then you're expendable, that it's time to find someone who can answer those questions. In fact, I would argue, while a lot of the questions that we're asking the Magic right now are fairly obvious and fairly predictable, we're also learning all kinds of new questions that the Magic need to ask. And that's going to be good for this front office because you're going to hate me for saying this because I say it over and over again. This year's not entirely about this year. It is about this year. The Magic need to continue advancing, need to continue growing, need to make the playoffs. It's a development year that is about winning. It's still about winning. We still care about results. But the Magic aren't winning a title this season. Not likely. They weren't ready to put all their chips, put some chips in and put some skin in the game. Well, guess what? Now you know what you need. Now you know where this team has to grow to get to that next level. And maybe another primary scorer, a player who can be a primary scorer, is that biggest need. Maybe a more consistent rim protecting big is another big need. Maybe more reliable three-point shooting off your bench is a big need because Gary Harrison doing it the way he needs to. Cole Anthony's been shuttled out. Will Wagner's had down year. We're just 8 games into the season. Like we're a 10th of the way through the season. We've got a long way to go. And some of these questions will get answered over the course of the season. We have to give this team time to develop and find itself and figure itself out. It isn't 2K where everyone comes in at their peak abilities. It takes time for them to find it. If they don't find it, we'll have concerns. And all these questions, all these concerns, they're not fake. They're real. And they should be asked. But the Magic needs some time to figure this stuff out. And we'll come back and address it again in a week and a half, 2 weeks, and see where the Magic are at. because I have one more message, one more positive message to send, and that's to stop panicking about the offense. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Built Rewards. Okay, real talk. We've all been there, feeling like we're burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, right? But here's the deal. Built Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Built. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt, joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonnba to start earning points with your rent payments today. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. It's a busy weekend here in Central Florida. The Magic will be back in town Friday to face the New Orleans Pelicans. Orlando Pride play their first ever home NWSL playoff game. Your community are your NWSL Shield winners. They play the Chicago Red Stars on Friday. EDC weekend is here if you're into that kind of thing at Camping World Stadium. And there's always a show going on at the Dr. Phillips Center, as well as the Magic homestand 2 coming up with the NBA Cup next week. That's why Game Time is the best place to be right now if you live in Central Florida, because Game Time has your ticket to all of these events and so much more. With Game Time picks, they can filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you're unsure what your seat actually will look like, they actually have a digital panoramic view that allows you to see where your tickets are and your view of the stage, court, field, whatever on the app itself. And with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper price elsewhere. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This has been my far too often tradition whenever the Magic have the kind of shooting night that they had last night. It was obviously a rough night, and if you look at every stat and every measurement, the Magic essentially lost last night because they did not make shots. Game's simple sometimes, right? And we could argue all day about, okay, teams are starting to leave the Magic open. I don't entirely think that's the case, but I do think there is a focus on stopping the paint and defending the paint and making those kickouts tougher. But at the end of the day, you can't hate the looks the Magic are getting. And that's the part that is frustrating. And I'm sure it frustrates Jamal Mosley the most. Because at this point, he is extremely happy with what the Magic are doing. In fact, he would say, I think he said this after Monday's game, we've got to trust the process. Our process is fine. We are getting the shots we want. We're just missing them. And look, you're coming off a game where you shot 5 for 34. 5 for 34 from 3. And it's bad. But let's dive deeper into the numbers. Let's dive deeper into the numbers. You hear me cite these numbers, and I will admit I don't always believe them. I don't always trust them, but this is a signal of the kind of shot quality the Magic are getting. According to NBA.com, the Magic were 4 for 17 last night on wide open threes, where the closest defender is 6 or more feet away. They were 1 for 17 on open threes, where the closest defender was 4 to 6 feet away. Before we get anywhere else, half of the Orlando Magic's three-point attempts were at least on paper wide open. Good shots. And if you even shoot a decent percentage, 8 for 17 is 50%. That'd be really good. If you make 2 or 3 more of those, 6 or 7, in a game that you lost by, 16? That's 6 more points right there. On shots where the Magic where the closest defender was 4 to 6 feet away, according to NBA.com, the Magic were just 1 for 17. So I want to pull that scope back out a little bit. The Magic were 5 for 34 for the game. That means every single three-point shot the Magic took last night was categorized as open or wide open. I want to repeat that because it was staggering when I looked it up. Every single three-pointer the Magic took against the Oklahoma City Thunder was either wide open or open, according to NBA.com's measurements. That is insane. And these are NBA players. They have to make them. Those are the shots you want to take. The Magic are not out here jacking up threes. They're not. Jalen Suggs maybe took a super deep three or one super deep three. I would argue with how the NBA categorizes shots that are contested, but whatever the case, I've been tracking this on bad shooting nights, and even on bad shooting nights, the Magic will take 4 or 5 contested threes. This was a patient attack, looking to get good shots, getting good shots, and just missing them. So if the Magic are feeling pretty good today, it's because, it's just about making shots, which the team isn't doing right now, but they're putting themselves in position to do so. In fact, the Orlando Magic last night were 1 for 13 on corner threes. That's the highest value three-point shot in the game. And the Magic as a team have been focused on getting more of these corner threes. They average a league-high 14.1 corner threes per game. So, what does this all mean? Well, it means nothing if the Magic don't make the shots. If the Magic, the Magic shoot mid-30s. If they shoot just average, it's going to be fine. But the Magic need to make shots, first and foremost. That's the point of the game. That's what they have to do. They have to make shots, plain and simple, not rocket science. But this is the big key I want to mention. I've seen a lot of people question Jamal Mosley's offensive system. And I would agree it hasn't been set up for this team to succeed without Paolo. And that's completely on Jamal Mosley. Mosley's got to adjust. He's got to find ways to get easy shots and make life easier for Franz and Jalen. They are not Paolo Banchero. You can't just plop him into the Paolo role. You've got to diversify the way that they attack. And if Franz can't create space one-on-one or create space one way, you got to find another way to get him involved, another way to get this team moving. And it's not easy to completely change the way that you're playing, especially without practice time. But the Magic have to figure that out, and that's on Jamal Mosley. And some of the, a lot of these offensive struggles and how the Magic are struggling to just create good looks sometimes, that's on Mosley. But I want to point this out too. That wasn't the problem against Oklahoma City. The Magic got good looks. They generated good looks. They missed the shots. That's on the players. The coach can't control whether shots go in or out. He may gently say, hey, don't shoot so much. Well, guess what? They didn't. They took 35 threes. That's about where they need to be. When they're healthy with Paolo, they should be around 40. When they're not healthy, they should be in the mid-30, at no more than 35. They did not settle for threes in this game. They just missed an inordinate amount of them. And so that's the deal. I think that the Magic are building a better offense. And it is something that's going to take time. And yes, it's been years, but it's still going to take time to develop and cultivate into a more powerful offense. And it's within the year. Like, it'll get better as the year goes on. I do think the Magic made significant strides offensively. There is a focus on getting these corner threes. It is not an anomaly that the Magic have gone from 8.5 corner threes per game to 14. That is intentional. Orlando wants guys floating to the corner. They think that's the best way to space, and they are targeting passes to the corner. In fact, I would argue Paolo at times when he was playing was looking for that weak side corner far too much and not looking at the basket as much as he needed to. This is intentional. And the Magic should not abandon it because this is going to make them successful. This kind of passing, this kind of hunting for three-point shots with the pressure they can put on the rim is a good thing. Monday it worked, except it didn't. They didn't make the shots. But the process is fine. The way the Magic are working to get these shots, the way they did Monday at least, is fine. They're getting the looks that they want. They need the shooters to make them. Whether it's Kenny, whether it's AB, whether it's Franz, whether it's Jalen, whether it's Cole, whether it's Caleb, whether it's Jet, whether it's Tristan, whether it's Goga, who probably should be taking threes at this juncture with the way the team is shooting. The Magic need to make the shots. I don't have anything else to say because I think Orlando is doing a good job otherwise, or is pointing toward doing a good job otherwise. You know, Dante Marchitelli said this. I was thinking it around the time that he said it, but he said this on the broadcast. The dam's going to burst at some point, and when it does, it's going to be an avalanche. Maybe it'll be Wednesday. Maybe it'll be back home. Maybe it'll be Friday when they're back at the Kia Center. Maybe the Magic are just going to be a Jekyll and Hyde team that can't do anything on the road right now and does everything at home. For now, that'll be okay. The Magic can survive like that. Win your home games, take care of your home floor. Magic are 2-0 at home. They're 1-5 on the road, I believe, or 1-5 on the road. Take care of your home floor, and the rest of it won't matter. And you'll be able to make up some ground on the road. And, again, the East is out there. The Magic are, I think, doing the right things and have the right mindset and the right processes. It's about execution and about making the shot. Like, I don't have anything else to say. And that's where we're going to leave it. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and also make podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device for the latest on the Orlando Magic. Be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. At some point, I will be doing a playbook video breaking down how the Magic are getting corner threes. I might be recording that tomorrow for the Orlando Magic Hub, so be on the lookout for that very, very soon. As if that wasn't enough, you can now check out the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode, we'll break down the Magic's game against the Indiana Pacers. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman, right? We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.